Hey guys! Now that we have soil in our planters and they are set in position, what do we do with the seeds? There are some small ones, some bigger ones, some plants we may even have never heard about. How do we sow them? How do we space them out? Which ones go to the top? Which ones go to the bottom? Well, let's see this in this video. Whenever possible, we've sourced organic seeds, which are much better quality, but then for some species we couldn't, so we have some regular seeds, which work just as well for what matters to us. Sometimes we've added some bonus seeds, and nothing prevents you from using your own. It doesn't matter. So how many seeds do I need to use? Well, it doesn't depend on the size of the seeds, which vary greatly from really tiny to bigger ones. No, it depends on the size of the plant and how we are going to harvest them. Here we have an example of correct spacing for plants which are going to be a little bit bigger. For example, okras, moringa trees, which we are going to harvest young. We also have cucumbers here, but it could be sweet basil or holy basil. These plants, as we can see, are spaced about 1 hand apart. That gives us an idea of the density we're going to have in our planter. But when we use the seeds, we have to count about double that quantity, and then we'll select only the best ones. Here we have an example of correct spaces for green leaves. Here it's kale, roughly 1 plant every inch or so. When we count the number of seeds, we need to double that number for the seeds we're going to stick in the ground, and then we'll select only the best ones and we'll eat the other ones. If we want to grow microgreens, we need to have a very high density because we're going to harvest them very young. So that could be the right type of spacing. You may or may not want to use some chopstick or something to separate different areas in your planter. It's entirely up to you. You could also stick some nails with a string to achieve the same purpose. First, let's see how to deal with large seeds like moringa, corn, beans, okra, coriander. So these are easy to grab. We take the number of seeds we need, stick them in a glass of water and get some water inside. And we're going to leave them there for a few hours, ideally 24 hours, but then just a couple of hours are already good. No more than 2 days. They're going to rot in between. Optimal number is overnight up to 24 hours. This greatly helps their germination rate. We're going to obtain much better results like this. And since we're talking about soaking seeds, later I'll show you in another video how to sprout your seeds in a simple glass jar. Tiny seeds are a lot trickier to work with. For example, culantro here has really tiny seeds. We can't grab them with our fingers. They don't stick, they're very small, we don't know how many we're gonna get. So what we do is that we get some tissue in a plate, get it wet, and then with a wet toothpick, I'm using a stick here, I don't have toothpicks, we can now grab 2 seeds or 3 seeds, and we make little groups like this on the wet tissue that we can now spread apart, make a little bowl with, and these are the ones we are going to set in our planter and space them right. For culantro, every about 2 inches, 5 centimeters is fine. So we can see that within a single bag we have enough to have many harvests. So we can keep these seeds, we seal the bag here tightly, and we can keep them about 1 year. After that they're going to start losing their germination power. Maybe some will still work, but 1 year is the general rule. Now that our seeds are ready here, how do we set them in the planter? I'm using a basket here for taking the video. It's more convenient, but obviously you're going to do that in your planter. First, we prepare the surface. As we've seen in the video tutorial, we just mix some coconut husk in the topsoil over a depth of about 1 inch, and we gently press on the surface just to compact it a little bit. We also prepare some extra soil mix, which is made half soil, half coconut, and if we are aiming to plant in the bottom planter that we have in a shady location, there probably is going to be too much moisture, so we want to add also some rice husk. But that's only if we are working in a shaded location. So we prepare our soil mix here. I've done this already. We remove as much as possible all the little bits and pieces, keep them apart. They're going to the compost bin. And we set our seeds in position. So for the large seeds that we have soaked in water, it's very easy to put them to the right spot, whatever that is that we have decided. Here I'm using corn because it's easy to see on the video, it's yellow. So we set our seeds, and for very tiny seeds that we have prepared with tissue, wet tissue, we also do the same. So here for culantro, I want to space them out about 5 centimeters apart. If you're working with kids, you might want to have them measure with their fingers so that we don't need to use a ruler, but we can space them out evenly, and it's a nice trick to teach them how to use your body to measure and relate to your environment. So we set them in position. It doesn't need to be exactly perfect, and actually you may want to plant in zigzag or any way possible. It doesn't really matter. Next, we're going to put this soil mix on top of our seeds. Okay, we just put a tiny layer like this. Once again, if you're working with kids, there's something they really like, is if you have some sort of colander or some sort of sieve, is to sieve the soil on the surface. It also works if you want to do things by the book and think that it's fun, because we should have fun when we're gardening. And this is how we obtain the best results. All the largest particles are ready to go to the compost bin. So now we have seeds under that, so we really don't want to disturb this place. So if we want to level it out, because some places are too thick and we don't want to go any thicker than a finger, then we have to really move soil very gently. See, that's some leftover that haven't been sieved. We want to move the soil very gently so that we don't disturb our seeds below. Once we're done, we press on them gently. It's just to make sure that soil is going to be well in contact with the seeds. And this is now ready for watering. You may or may not want to have labels to remember which seeds you have set in place. I usually do like to have some because I constantly forget what I've stuck where. And in the example of mustard here, I see nothing is working the way it's supposed to. So I've contacted the reseller and talking with them to see what's wrong with the seeds or with my use of it. And I can do that because of the label. I remember what it is. Nothing easier than making these labels. We are overflowed with leftover plastic. I tend to think yogurt pots are a bit too short. Maybe this kind of length is actually better. I like to do it like this. And I like to give them a little bit of an angle here so that they can be stuck into the soil easily. Just a simple marker, write down, not rocket science. Last but not least, what do we stick to the top of our planter or to the bottom of our planter? So that's going to heavily depend on your typical situation. For example, both of mine are shaded. So my top planter is probably only sunny as your bottom planter if you are exposed to the sun regularly. So in a strong sun situation, we typically have eggplants, corn, sunflowers, Thai herbs like lemongrass, holy basil, sweet basil, these type of things. Coriander and green leaves will work well, should work well, like all the cabbages like kale, pak choi, all of these should be really, really fine. Now, my top planter, which is shaded, would be the same as a bottom planter of a sunny situation. So there you can have mint, you can have pretty much all of the above. They're probably not going to do as well. Lemongrass won't work, maybe Thai herbs will work, but you can also here have Malabar spinach, Ceylon spinach, all sorts of leafy greens are going to work. Here I have beans, kale, okras. I'm not sure I'm going to have any harvest for my okras. It might be too shaded here. It works better in the sun. bottom planter, anyways, is going to be good for your gingers. Mint should do well. All the spinach like Ceylon spinach, Malabar spinach will work. Your leafy greens should be okay. It might be a bit difficult on them, and that's gonna also heavily depend on watering. This is going to become critical, and we're gonna have another video on that. When it comes to gardening, one size clearly doesn't fit all. Your conditions, your balcony conditions are really specific. So I know you have different questions that are coming, and I've tried to give you some guidelines, and it's probably not enough. So do comment below, or better yet, join our online webinars, because this is really where I can hear your questions and give you specific advice to your local situation, so that together we can learn gardening, get the best out of our planters, and get some harvest and some food we can eat. See you there soon. Take care.